So welcome to the latest of these Blues Zooms, and delighted to be joined by one of the country's most experienced sports administrators, Niels De Vos, decade plus as the Chief Exec of the UK Athletics. And now, Niels, you're looking forward to being in charge of the World Athletics in 2022. It's been put back for obviously for COVID reasons to Oregon 2022 now.
Yeah, that's right. So I left when I left UK Athletics a couple of years ago to set up my own business, just consulting on sport and events, really making sure that people who invest in sport, whether it's cities and countries investing in events or people investing in teams, whatever it may be, get the right plan and do it properly. And I was lucky enough to be asked by the Governor of Oregon to help them stage in the World Athletics Championships. So I put a team in place out there, and I'm obviously at the moment having to do it remotely. So lots of nighttime Zoom calls. Yeah,
and of course you were involved in London 2017 as well, and the Olympics going back. So you are, as I say, one of the top sports administrators in this country. And to me, it's a dying art, really. And how we'd love someone with experience running football clubs. I mean, it is a dying art, I think. Have you ever thought about going into football?
Do you know? Yes, obviously, because if you're in sport, if you really want to test yourself at the top, you've got to be in football because it's the biggest sport by so far. But it comes with its challenges, and my team, your team, the Blues, are a good example of some of the challenges it brings. If I got a call tomorrow saying, "Would I come and run it?" My heart would say, absolutely, and I'd run over hot coals to do it. But my head and my friends and my family would say, run the other way, which is such a shame. But it's a little bit of a poison sport,
Well, why do you say that? Why would you want to run the other way?
Well, I've got quite a few friends who work in football. I won't name any names, but big clubs and clubs down through the leagues, and some of them have quite difficult lives. They can't go to their local anymore because people know who they are. Could I wander down the road and go for a pint in Moseley with the same freedom I can at the moment if I was running a football club like Birmingham? I don't know. It's a shame that that's the case, because it should be about fun and it should be about community engagement. And I think that's where football's gone a little bit wrong, if I'm honest.
Yeah. What is the main thread of the job for you? I mean, it's a business role, isn't it, as well? But I mean, where does it cross over with the sport itself? Is it separate for you?
Well, I think it's really interesting. I mean, if you look at Brentford at the moment, I know the Chief Exec there, they appointed him probably 12 months ago. And they were very clear in the brief that what they wanted was someone to run the business. They didn't want the CEO to have anything at all to do with the football side. And that's fine, and it's a good model. It's not one I would personally want to do if I was to be a CEO, because actually the business is the football side. And if you separate them out, effectively you become a venue manager. How do you make money out of renting the ground and match day hospitality and all the rest of it? That's important, but you've got to get the football side right. And to me, I was chief exec of a Premiership rugby team and took them to winning the title, actually. But the idea that I wouldn't have had any involvement on the playing side would have been peculiar to me.
Remind us who that was, Niels? Remind us who that was?
Sale Sharks back in 2006. And I didn't have any experience in the game. I'd never even played the game. What I did was make sure I hired really, really good people who did know the game. But you still need to have some ability to control that, I believe, as a CEO.
Yeah, I mean, the criticism leveled at Rendon at Blues is that he doesn't have any experience of running a football club. Now, he offered a little bit of contrition last week and said he'd made mistakes in the first few years he's been there, going back 3 years, and it is a fresh start now with Karanka. What have you made of that? I mean, can you do that? I mean, is it how much experience do you need to run a football club, do you think?
Well, you either need to have it or you need to hire in people that do. The best CEOs in the world hire in people that are better than they are. That's a truism in any business. You should always hire people that are better than you are. I suspect that football doesn't tend to do that because it's quite ego-driven in the nature of the sport. But look, it's obviously been a really disappointing few years, but yeah, they have put the money in. To be fair, we've got one of the highest wage bills in the division, certainly a lot higher than where we've been finishing. So maybe they've just not had the right combination of experience.
Yeah.
And I think if you're seen as inexperienced, there's a chance that others will exploit that. I don't know if that's happened around St Andrews, but it's always a possibility.
Yeah, and when you say you bring in people with more experience, that means kind of agents, doesn't it? Really, people who have been involved, contacts within the game, or does it not?
I don't think it. Again, if you're asking my personal view, I would never put an agent in control of the club. I mean, there are one or two models where it's happened. We've had dalliances with that down the Blues over the years, from special advisors like McManaman when he was there, through to managers who are kind of quasi agents as well. I just think the agents are inevitably, at best, people who look in both directions. So I think you need someone who is absolutely committed to the best interests of the club and will drive the best possible deals for the club, not for themselves. But that, I think, needs someone with the club in their blood. You can't get that if it's a transient position where someone's come in for a couple of years as a step up, because they use our club as a stepping stone, not as a something they live and breathe. And it's easy to reminisce and think we should be like Bilbao and just have a club run by Brummies. But you know what? I think too many people have been through this club who don't care, including people who've invested a lot of money but don't care enough about the club.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to when Harry Redknapp was there and Darren Dean was in charge of recruiting. He was, an agent, which was not ideal, and it ended very badly. But that is somebody without much experience looking for somebody to help. And I think the way it looks is that they are looking for outside help, but it's a learning experience though, isn't it? I mean, from what we saw last week, I mean, there was a bit of contrition from Rendon saying that he's learning, and does that appease you a little bit?
I think it's a really, really hard job, and there's a bit of me that thinks, contrary to what I've just said, being a fan is quite dangerous, because you might do things that aren't in that you lead with your heart rather than your head. But
you can be too close, can you?
Yeah, but I just think you need the right balance of both. You need to be able to make tough decisions, but the main thing is you need to be a good recruiter, whether you're a CEO or a manager or a director of football or a head of under-18s or the head of community. Being a good recruiter is the most important thing in any business, but in this business, in the football business, it's the most important thing of all.
When you say recruiter, in what sense? Not on the playing side.
Everybody, because if you want a manager to recruit players, you need a manager who's a proven recruiter. If you need a manager to put the tactical discipline behind a team that's been recruited by a director of football, you need a manager. But you also then need a director of football that can actually pull a team together. And there's a myriad of different models, but in the end, the good ones work because you get the right people in place. The bad ones don't work because you've got the wrong people in place.
So how would you do it then? If you were in charge, you'd have a director of football, would you? And you'd run the business side and let the sports people get on with it.
I think you'd need to take a long look at what you wanted to achieve. I was listening to one of your Zooms the other day, the one rather ironically called End of the Road, and let's hope it isn't, but let's hope we keep on. But ultimately, the chap who works for Football Manager, who was on with you, was saying you've got to have a decision. Do you want to try and go for bloke and get promotion in a short period of time by buying in some proven talent that's high risk but might work? Do you want to have a 5-year strategy where you build a team? Do you want to be a community team first and foremost that builds a bigger, really engaged crowd? And I think Birmingham has to do that because the crowds are drifting away. I'm not a young man, but when I go, I bring the average age of the gate down. That's not a great place for the club to be. So, if you ask me for my solution, I'd be looking for a kind of 5-year solution where you have a twin attack of bedding the team back into the community properly, and having that slightly longer term model where you collectively appoint a team that works. Now, whether you start with the director of football or whether you start with a manager who also does the football business side, I don't know. It's the people. You'll finalise that with the people that you meet in your interview.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word now is a project. To me, I mean, Karanka seems to be an excellent choice if he's allowed to build that project. I mean, I spoke to Guillaume Balaguer, who who knows Karanka very well, and we discussed that you know, this kind of family thing where exactly what you're saying, really, that is how to build a successful future,
Yeah.
really.
And I hear good things as well, but he will only succeed if he has, and people say if he has the freedom to act. I'd catch it differently. I'd say if he has the trust of the organisation. Because if you're a chief executive, and effectively he will be the chief executive of the playing side, if you don't have the trust of your bosses, it ain't going to work. It doesn't work in any business at all. You know, from a multinational like Cadbury's to a school, you know, where the head teacher has to have the absolute trust of the board of directors. It's the same in football. Yeah. If you've got trust and a positive playing environment, and Paul Robinson said something similar recently about, you know, that was what was good under say Gary Rowett. You know, the players knew they were trusted to do their job and they knew what their job was, and that makes a big difference before you even get to things like tactics and personnel.
Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, this interference, you know, from the business side into the sports side, is that a red herring? Is that inevitable? I mean, Dong has been accused of being on the training field, etc., and you know, there's been a few bust ups and all the rest of it. Is it give and take, or would you say stay away? Would you stay away?
I think I would go occasionally, but in general, I would stay away. You know, I certainly training grounds a sort of neutral zone to a certain extent. But certainly things like the changing room are right out of bounds for anyone who's not part of the first team squad, and the chief executive is not part of the first team squad. You know, you look at some of the best. You know, would Alex have allowed Peter Kenyon down to Carrington in Manchester? Not on your life, and nor would Peter Kenyon have gone. Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's about trust, and it's about feeling that you've got that responsibility and you're being allowed to get on with it. Because then if you pop down as a chief exec to just see how things are going on, it's not an issue.
Yeah. So if you're a consultancy now and you work on these kind of things, what would you, if you walked in there today and you've got a new manager coming in, Karanka, knowing what you know about what's happened the last few years at Blues and the last decade, really, what would you say? How would you approach different people and say, look, this is what needs to happen?
Well, first of all, it's a different question asking me as a consultant than asking me as a fan. As a consultant, I would never go in and say, this is what needs to happen. I'd go in and listen first. And that is, again, part of the problem with football. There's very rarely time to listen. And often the negotiations are done early. You know, a manager might come in and say, well, I want this team and I want that team and I want these backroom staff. And then if it doesn't work, everyone feels let down and the whole thing blows up and you start again. But given the opportunity and the time to say, we're looking at this over a period, I'd go, what kind of playing style do we want? What kind of team does the manager want to pull around them? Can he access those players and those backroom staff? Because the backroom staff are critical. And I mean everything from medical upwards, because if your players aren't fit, however good they are, they're not going to perform. And then if that doesn't marry with the business objective, then I'd be saying to that club, you have a challenge here because you've got two halves of the business going in different directions. So you need someone to glue it together, or one of you needs to change direction, because otherwise you're just on a path which will lead to a separation and a split. And that's again, I come down to trust. You've got to all be pushing in the same direction. But I go back to the staffing point. It isn't just, you know, backroom staff traditionally. It's things like the medics are so important. 5 or 6 years ago, I went up to a very high-flying Premiership club to look around their training venue with some guys from track and field. And first of all, we were amazed at how old-fashioned the training methods were. Yeah, this was a club that was consistently having problems with hamstring injuries, and was one of the reasons why we gone up to have a look. But we looked at the training, we looked at the physio and the weight conditioning, and then the manager came in and took all the first team squad out onto the pitches to train without asking the health and the weights people what session they'd just done. And we all looked at each other and went, well, no wonder they've always got hamstring problems. The manager, it's a well-respected guy, doesn't even know the gym session they've just been doing for the last hour. So, I mean, there's some really basic things that you know, if you're looking at a club, you have to get every single link in the chain strong, because you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts. Something you said to me yesterday, when you look at Blues, I see a club falling ever further away from its own community. What do you mean by that?
Well, I exactly what I say, really. I don't think it's in touch with its fans. I think it's become it's fallen between two stools. You know, you can have a model where you get a lot of overseas investment and success is enough to build a crowd. But then when the lean times come, as they inevitably do, particularly for a club like ours, then the crowds will drift away again, and you're left with a core. Now, there's a core of Blues fans, you know, but it's too small. People talk about the club being a sleeping giant. It isn't, actually, because the core has got too small. You know, a sleeping giant has to have a core of 20 and a sleeping fan base of 100. Yeah, we're more like a core of 15 and a sleeping fan base of 30. So I would be spending a lot of time re-engaging with kids. You know, why am I a Blues fan? Because I went to my first game in '75, and despite then having followed with the heartbreak of a semi-final defeat in the last few seconds, which should have bloody warned me what I was letting myself in for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it
was so natural. You know, I went to a school in South Birmingham, and everyone was Blue Nose, pretty much. Right?
Which school was that? Which school was that, Niels?
Dorries Junior.
Okay.
So just south of Solihull, right?
Yeah.
And then, but when I came back from Manchester in when I've come back to Birmingham? 2007. My lad was 8 at the time, 6 at the time. And we sent him to St Bernard's in Moseley, you know, South Birmingham Catholic school. I thought, this could be fine. They're all going to be Blues fans there, surely. And I said to him, because we moved out of Manchester
I know what you're going to say.
Right. And anyway, I said, whatever happens, you tell everyone you're a Blues fan when you get to that school. And he came back at the end of the first day and he said, Dad, there's hardly any Blues fans at the school. And I looked at him and said, don't tell me they're Villa fans. He said, no, they're all Chelsea and Liverpool and Arsenal. Yeah. Well, so there's half your problem. Most of the kids see it as a computer game now. They've never seen these players. We're not. You know, we've got to somehow get back into this is real football for the people of Birmingham and re-engage with all those schools and all those kids and build a fan base.
It's disillusion, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's been decades of underachievement, really, and that inevitably takes its toll, doesn't it? People drift away, and you know they're interested, but not that interested.
Well, I agree with you, but you have to build a business from somewhere, because otherwise you've got a model that says I'll spend and spend and spend for success, and then you have a bad year and you go down and you're gone. You're Portsmouth. We don't want to be Portsmouth, right? Yeah. Crystal Palace are a really good model. I mean, their community team is run by a guy called Mike Summers, who I used to work with. Brilliant guy, runs an amazing community program, really in the heart of that community in South London, and of course, it doesn't win you trophies, but it gives you a base to build on.
Yeah, but those clubs, I mean, they have to start from the bottom, haven't they? I mean, they really have, and they bottomed out, and then you build up from that community. I mean, do you like the idea of a Blues Trust is there, but doesn't really have any influence? That's a good community base, isn't it? Yeah,
I think again, you need to be run by the right people. You know, there are supporter-owned clubs in the UK, and it's a good organisation that helps set them up. But I think that those opportunities are gone. I mean, I love the German model. You know, the 50+1 model is something I wish we had, but we're not.
You don't like Leipzig, then?
Not a big fan of Hoffenheim either, but no, because Leipzig will come and go as a bubble. You know, will they still be there in 10 years' time? Who knows? But I do think that sense of, and whether it's ownership structure, you don't necessarily have to have ownership structure, but I think fan representation on the board is definitely a good thing. But building that engagement, getting all those people feeling like it's their club is really important. Yeah.
Do you, I mean, when we cut to the quick here, I mean, can you do this without experience? I mean, if this is a success, you know, and they're not local people and money is thrown at it and the club starts to win, do people really care?
No, I don't think people do really care if they start to win. Where they start to worry is when they stop winning and then go, well, what's happening? You know, why isn't there more money coming in? Why isn't there more success? And so I think you need both, you know, ultimately. You know, Man City are a really fascinating case study for me. I mean, a club that I kind of want to despise because of the way they've reached the top, but kind of quite like because they were one of us not that long ago. You know,
similar to Blues in many respects. The fan base is similar. You know, they're kind of a bit and just get on with it. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another person.
Not anymore.
Yeah, the day I moved to Manchester from Birmingham, having given you a story going the other way, would have been 99, and I sat there and I watched over a couple of days Man United win the Champions League in a game they should have been walloped in, and then saw City win promotion from 2-0 down with 5 minutes to go. You know, I thought, God, this is a lucky City. You know, I wish our team had a bit of their luck. We haven't had that luck. You know, I hope it will come at some point. We've seen breakthroughs. But it's going to be a long haul, you know, and I think if these owners are committed for the long haul, then let's help them bed themselves into the community. Let's help them say, you will not achieve this by distant remoteness. You need to open this thing up. And so we can share the joys and the sorrows, right? That's our song. And we're not doing that. We're just sharing the sorrows. We're not sharing the joys.
Yeah, are you surprised then that, I mean, finally, I mean, Rendon has been silent for pretty much 3 years and then came out and spoke and seemed very pleased with himself having got Karanka in. Is that an encouraging sign that he has communicated in the last 10 days or so, finally?
I don't know, Chris. I'd love to think it is. It could just be a sugar rush. You know, I've appointed a manager. Everyone thought I was going to appoint a nobody, and I've appointed someone with a good track record who's got clubs out of the division. People are going to like that. So it's a sugar rush. You go out and take the adulation. I'd have been far happier if he'd been able to articulate, not only have I appointed this manager, but this is why, these are the very specific reasons why we've appointed him, and these are the objectives we've set him. Personally, I would think that would have been a much better way of doing it.
Yeah. Does it worry you also that, you know, beyond the administration, we know pretty much nothing about who owns the club, really? I mean, we have an idea, but not really. I mean, the Football League don't really seem to investigate at all where the money's coming from and who these people are. Is that a worry?
Yes, it's absolutely, it should be a worry. I mean, you've only got to look at Wigan to see why it might be a worry. You know, everyone thought, great, we've been bought out, and 2 days later they're put into administration. You know, if you don't know where the money is and you don't know how committed it is, you're always at a risk. You're always at a risk.
Right.
So we're living beyond our means. If you're living beyond your means and the guy who's providing the cash to keep going as a going concern suddenly decides I've had enough, you're bust. That's the bottom line. So of course it's a worry. Because the law is you only have to sign a going concern statement every year. So you've only ever got certainty for a year unless you're a club that's making a profit.
Yeah. Do you fear for the future for the club as things stand, and given what you know from the past? It's been a decade, isn't it, Niels? 2011, the relegation from the Premier League.
Well, I would have feared for it a lot more if we'd gone down. I mean, especially with the new rules coming in around salary caps in League One and League Two. That's going to make the jump to Championship almost impossible. I really think it's going to cut them adrift. So you absolutely do not want to be dropping out of the Championship. If we can stay in the Championship, it's a good league. You know, we can build a good club there. We can build a well-supported club, and we'll have the chance of going up. But when we go up, you've got to be ready to stay there. And at the moment, I don't think we are. I'd love it, of course, if we did go up. You know, how fabulous would that be? But you know, I think it can't be a dream. It has to be a plan. And I don't know if the plan's there. None of us do because we haven't seen it.
Yeah. So it all comes back to communication and transparency, doesn't it? From what you just said there, that's it, isn't it? Knowing what the plan is.
It's trust. Trust is everything in every business. And in sport, it's the most important thing of all. I mean, again, just to keep banging on about it, but yeah, I don't think the players had trust in the club at the end of this season. And I think it showed in their performances. I'm only going through my son's eyes because he's the one that's been and I haven't been able to go. But that's what I hear. It looked like, not that they're damn tools, but they didn't look like they were fighting for survival. Well, why is that? They're professional people. They're paid. They'll put a shift in. I think they'd lost a bond. And if you're 2% off the mark in the Championship, you're going to get dicked every week. 2% is not a lot. That's why your leadership has got to be absolutely spot on. And I hope Karanka is. I really do.
Your son, is he a committed Blue Nose? Having said what you said before, he's still there. That's good news.
Oh yeah. I condemned him to a life of following the Blues as well. So yeah. Look, funnily enough, one of his very early seasons was, of course, really good because we went up under Alex McLeish, and then the next game, we started the Premiership really well. I think we were unbeaten 11, 12 games, made it to the Carling Cup final. Yeah, took him to Wembley, saw them lift a trophy. I'm thinking, man alive, he doesn't know he's born. Since then, it's been a bit of a negative spiral. But look, it's in our blood, right? Why am I doing this with you today? Because you called and said, do you want to have a chat about the Blues? Okay, great. But we need more people like that. And I think we probably need a few more people like that in the club. I think there's some great people there. The commercial team are good. But the people that are really making decisions, I just don't know.
Very interesting. Just finally, as a long-standing fan, how do you? What is the club to you, memories-wise? And what is it? To me, it's a gut feeling. It's something I've had all my life, which you can't shake.
It's exactly that. It's my favourite team being the team that got relegated in '85 because they had Tony Coton and Robert Hopkins and Noel Blake, and to my mind, the best kit. Although arguably the '75 kit was also pretty cool.
What do you think of the new one, by the way? Have you seen the new one?
I haven't seen it actually. I've got it. It might look a bit cheap, but it's a bit Ipswich, but I quite like it. I prefer it to the last one with the black and blue, certainly. But no, and then it's going to Cardiff to see them win the playoff final. Darren Carter, 18, local lad scoring a goal, and my wife phoning me and singing "Keep My Arm Down the Phone." And crying like a baby. That's what being a Blues fan is. And the joys will be a lot shorter than the hard times. But it's our club, right? It's our city. It carries our city's name, and I think that's a really powerful thing. That there is a danger of it just slipping away. That's what I meant when I said to you when you called me the other night. It's just lost a little bit of connection with the people of the city, the businesses of the city. And the people coming into the city, which are, it's a booming town, actually. We should be looking at that and thinking this is a chance to get on the wave of a city that's doing well with the Commonwealth Games coming and new investment coming in HS2. There's a big opportunity, but the owners have got to look outside of the walls of St Andrews. They've got to get it right inside the walls, but they've got to get it right outside as well.
Yeah, looking at the bigger picture, that's a very good point. Just should mention the Commonwealth. You're involved in the Commonwealth Games, aren't you? As you're running it, aren't you? Pretty much.
No. So there's a whole team there. I'm doing giving them a little bit of advice as a consultant. But
what's happening about the village? The village is gone, isn't it? It's not the one that was going to be built. Not happening.
Yeah, not close to the detail. But what I'd say is I wouldn't worry. I would take no worry from that at all. Using student accommodation, which is I think what they're now going to do for athletes, is been done for many years. In fact, the Commonwealth Games I was in charge of in Manchester back in 2002, we put them in university accommodation. Since then, since you and I were at university, the standard of accommodation is so good, it's almost hotel level. So the athletes won't care at all. And in fact, some of them will prefer it because they'll be nearer their venues. So it's not a problem for the Commonwealth Games at all. And the good news for the city is it can just be what it should have been all along, which is a bit of urban redevelopment. So I think the Games is in really good hands. The leadership there are very good. They've got some of the things I'm saying Birmingham needed. Great team, recruited well, good trust, clear vision about what they're going to deliver, and they'll deliver it.
Wish you well with that, and of course the World Athletics in 2022 now in Oregon, which I know you're Chief Executive of the local organising committee. Great to hear your views. Just finally, this season, what are you expecting of Blues?
It's a hope that kills you, isn't it? I'd be happy not to be caught looking down the plug hole at the end of the season again, because it's been too many like that. A good season with a strong finish and a whiff of the top half would keep me very, very happy. But what will keep me happier is the fans coming back in and enjoying what they're watching. Because that's the bit that's missing. For too many years, the best bit of going to the game has been, the walk up to the ground, the buying of the pie and the music, and then the game itself just hasn't quite delivered. We need to get that. We need to get a sense of energy and positivity through the club. I think the new manager, the new kit, all that will give us a good start. Bit of sunshine. Probably the crowds won't be in, and I worry about that. I really worry about that. But maybe when they do get back, all the Blue Noses out there, every single one of them should say, when it's open again and we can go, we will go. We want that place round to say, thank God we've got our club back. and we can go and watch them. And that would be a great start, and we could kick on and have a good season.
And a message to Rendon, the CEO, with all your experience?
Don't just appoint someone and give them your support, because appointing them and cutting the support from under their feet can only ever fail.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Keep right on, Niels. Lovely to hear your views, and the very best of luck for the future. Cheers.
All right. Take care, Chris. Bye.
So many thanks to Niels, Blues fan for 45 years. Thanks to you too for watching. We'll do a few more of these, I think. If you've enjoyed it, please put a thumbs up below, and also subscribe if you can. See you next time.